Mercedes Mone told The Ringer she is the greatest women's wrestler of all time, which got me and Kevin Zwicker thinking, who indeed is actually the GOAT of the ladies in the ring? And Kevin, I have no problem with Mercedes saying that, but let's try and figure it out. Or Sasha Banks, I guess, would actually have a better claim for the greatest of all time on the women's side than Mercedes Mone.
You know, let's just take a step back and just appreciate the fact that we can have this conversation. 10, 15 years ago, we wouldn't have been able to have this conversation. Back then, women were having bra and panties matches and having matches that if you blinked, you'd miss it. So the fact that we can even have this conversation, I think, is a blessing in itself.
Yeah, no doubt. And there's a lot of women who are worthy. Like, here's the thing. You almost have to narrow it down so who even belongs in the conversation, right? So let's go back before this current era. Who predates this era that belongs in the conversation? The Fabulous Moolah, China, then I would say Trish Stratus and Lita. Anybody else that you think? Mickey James was pretty big for a while.
I would throw a little bit of Victoria, aka Tara and TNA, in that conversation as well.
Yeah, but who from that group that we just named do you think has to be on a top 10 list, if not a top 5 list?
From those names that you just mentioned, I'd probably have to go with Fabulous Moolah. I know this is a long time ago, so, people's memory might not be as fresh, but Fabulous Moolah, let's take away the outside of the ring stuff, was a trailblazer in this industry. She was one of the higher paid women in her time and one of the only women who were an actual attraction in her era. So we got to sit there and in-ring wise, got to give her due.
Yeah, I mean, well, look, she was the biggest star of that era. This is when women's matches were probably in large considered bathroom break matches before the Sunny and Sable pinup days. But what about Trish and Lita?
I'm a Trish guy, just outside of the fact that she was my childhood crush, like she was for a lot of young guys as well. She's just one of the greater women that have been in the ring. I think that a few years ago when she came out of retirement and had that match with Charlotte at SummerSlam, I thought it was great. I thought it was a match that you wouldn't expect for somebody who hasn't been as active as her, to have. And her latest run, when she had their feud with Becky Lynch, I thought was very good as well. So if I had to pick between Lita and Trish, I would go with Trish. And that's no slight at Lita, because Lita was also very good in her day. I remember at the time when her and Lita main evented Raw for the women's title, that was such a huge deal because that was something that wasn't going down. But I would have to tip my hat and give it to Trish.
All right. Well, I mean, China was also a huge, probably the first attraction of the modern era. But then you get to the modern era, and to me, it's 5 of the modern era. There's Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, Sasha Banks / Mercedes Mone, Bianca Belair, and Rhea Ripley. And all 5 of them can make an argument to be top 5 all time. I think what hurts Mercedes is this gap since she left WWE. She left WWE, the AEW run, there's still the jury's still out. It remains to be seen, but she hasn't had much of an impact there. Mostly maybe because she hasn't been able to get in the ring, which is as her strong suit, perhaps. Rhea Ripley is emerging and a huge force, and projecting forward is easily on that list. Charlotte, Becky's as close as there was to a Stone Cold Steve Austin on the women's side. Charlotte's the total package. Bianca has showed improved. And then if I'm looking into the future, I could see Jade Cargill getting there, but she's got a lot of work to do. So I think those 5, along with Trish, Moolah, China, Lita, that's almost the top 10 right there.
Yeah. So if you had a gun to my head and say who's the best of this era, all right, my personal favorite is Mercedes Mone / Sasha Banks. And the reason I'm saying that is because her match with Bayley in Brooklyn at NXT TakeOver is probably not even just say women's match. It is probably one of the best matches of the last decade. They also had another very good match at NXT Respect. And she did have, it was very brief, but she did have a very good match against Kairi Sane in New Japan. And the match that she was having with Willow before she got hurt was also very good. But if somebody wanted to sit there and tell me that they consider Charlotte the GOAT, I wouldn't have a problem with that as well. But just personally me, I'm a Sasha Banks, Mercedes Mone guy.
Yeah, I think my answer would be Charlotte, but I don't know how long she's holding that because I think these other women are coming for, like, Bianca's coming for it. Rhea's as over as I can remember a woman being.
For sure, man. Rhea's one of those people that when you look at her, you could just say, oh, this is a star. Rhea's the type of person that, like, my friends who aren't into wrestling, they sit around, they hit me up and say, hey, who is this woman? Why is she this? Why is she this? She's a person who you could just look at and say, oh, this is a big deal.
All right, so let's go. We'll say Charlotte Flair, Sasha / Mercedes, Becky Lynch. Also, remember that run to WrestleMania. You know, I can switch the order around. I could argue the order for all these ladies. Bianca, Rhea's on her way. That's 5. Chyna, Fabulous Moolah, Trish Stratus, Lita, and who's 10?
I would have. Did you mention Chyna already?
Yeah, I said Chyna.
Oh, shoot. Well, you know who doesn't get a lot of love? Jacqueline. I don't remember if you remember Jacqueline. Jacqueline, she's very good as well. Mickie James, she's definitely should be in that discussion. We mentioned her earlier, Victoria / Tara. You know who I'm also sitting there thinking about that doesn't get a lot of love because a lot of people didn't see her because she spent a lot of time in TNA is Gail Kim. You know, Gail Kim, that TNA women's division was holding it down for a long time when women's wrestling wasn't a thing. When WWE was doing those short bathroom breaks, TNA, they were main eventing women matches for the closing their show. So I think Gail Kim might have to get that 10th spot.
What about Bayley, Alundra Blaze, Asuka?
There's a lot. The fact that we're even having discussion where we have to sit there and replace people and say this person I think is a good thing. Asuka's definitely up there. Her work in Japan as Kana was very good. So I wouldn't be upset with Asuka either, man. It's a lot to choose from. It's hard with these lists because you got to sit there and leave people out and you got to shuffle the deck when the order is, man. It's just tough.
But I think it shows you how strong the current crop and modern era is that, almost it's a guarantee they're in the top 10, and it may just be the top 5 of current active wrestlers with Becky, Charlotte, Sasha, Rhea, and Bianca. So that goes to show. I mean, I'm doing so much women's basketball coverage on this channel, and I've actually made the parallels, in the WNBA now where they're selling a little bit of the sex appeal along with the skill appeal. Back in the day in wrestling, it was all the sex appeal during the Attitude Era, really. And now you've got the women who've got the skills, also, have the presentation and everything that goes with it, and are basically on equal fitting or very close to it with the men. It's a new day.
This is a controversial choice, because I know that a lot of people, they were soured, because of her last run. But what do you think about Ronda Rousey?
Ronda Rousey, probably like from just general notoriety and impact. I don't know if she did enough in the WWE specifically, in wrestling specifically. But I don't hate mentioning her.
Yeah, I feel like her first year, the first one that she has, it's right up there with Brock Lesnar and Kurt Angle as the best rookie year in WWE. People forget how great that WrestleMania match was with her and Kurt Angle against Triple H and Stephanie, and her matches with Charlotte and her matches with Sasha Banks. I mean, she had some really good bangers in that first run. Second run, don't really need to talk about much, but that first run was really good.